Hello and welcome to the RPG Academy podcast YouTube channel. My name is Michael, and I'm here today to talk about Marvel Legendary. It is the deck building game from Upper Deck Entertainment, and it is one of my favorite games. My idea here is I want to give kind of an overview of how the game works, an explanation, and then actually show a solo version of the game being played beginning to end. So anyone who's not familiar with this game will know how to play by the time it's over. Now, Marvel Legendary is one of my favorite games, and it's got several things going for it that keep it in my top rotation. So one, it's cooperative. I'm just a fan of cooperative games. If I get my friends together, if my family's together, we're playing games, I prefer them to be games that we're on the same team. And that is what this game does. There is a competitive aspect that as you defeat villains and masterminds, you do accrue points. So if you're playing with multiple players, there is a way to calculate who has the most points, so who won the most. I don't particularly or normally do that, but it is part of the game if that's something you are interested in. Secondly, it is a deck builder, and deck builders are probably one of, if not my favorite genre of games. If you're unfamiliar, in its basic terms, a deck builder, you begin the game with a number of cards that are usually starter cards, basic cards. They're not very powerful. And as the game goes on, you have the chance to get better cards into your deck. Often there's a chance to get rid of those starter cards or just weaker cards in general. So over time, your deck will develop and get stronger. And ideally, it will synergize with itself based off the choices you make on which cards you add to your deck, that it has a specific thing it's trying to do. You're trying to build to a specific engine of sorts that because of this card and this card, they work together in a way that allows you to do this third thing, and this third thing is what you're trying to do overall. It does have a solo mode. Now, I don't think the solo mode is as great as playing the game with multiple people. Many factors, including it's just not as much fun to play by yourself. But it does include rules for playing by yourself if that's something you want to do, need to do, just because of the ability to get other people to play, proximity to you, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to show you again at the end of this video. I'm going to play a solo mode game. It has superheroes in it, and I like superheroes. I'm an old school comic book nerd. I grew up reading comics in the 80s. I kind of fell away from it. I have not kept up recently. There's so much stuff I know that I've missed. But when I was a youngster, I loved reading comics, and I read both DC and Marvel, but push comes to shove, Marvel is my favorite of the two. I mean, I love Batman and Flash and Green Lantern, but, again, push comes to shove, I prefer Marvel over DC. So we got Marvel superheroes in a deck builder that is cooperative, and it has a solo mode. So there's a whole bunch of boxes of this game ticks for me that definitely keeps it as to one of my favorites. Now, what I'm going to be showing off today is the core set and the core set only. There are, at this point, probably a dozen or so expansions, and each of the expansions adds in new heroes, sometimes new versions of heroes, and new keywords and new abilities. So I'm going to stick to the core set in this video, and then the game I play is even going to be less than a full set because I'm only using some of the heroes. But I'm going to try to walk through how it works. So in the game, you have a mastermind, and these are the evil supervillains that you are going to try to defeat. In the base game, it comes with 4. It has Doctor Doom, Loki, Magneto, and Red Skull. Red Skull is sort of the easiest to defeat. He has the lowest threshold. His attack value is 7. Which is the least of any of the masterminds in the set. So he's, again, generally considered the easiest one, which is one of the reasons why I've chosen him for the mastermind for this game, because I want to hopefully win in my demonstration. So the mastermind is made up of 5 cards that have identical art. The top one, or I guess the mastermind itself, will give you some information. It always leads, and this tells you which villain group this mastermind always uses whenever they're in the game. In the solo version, you're allowed to ignore that because sometimes it's just untenable. You cannot win in certain situations. Solo's hard. The game itself can be very hard. More so now that well, that's been a while, but when Dark City came out, it made the game harder. And for most people, myself included, I don't think the game was necessarily complete until both the core set and Dark City came out. And I kind of keep them together. And really, personally, I keep those two together in what I call my core set box. But for today, we're using the actual core set. So when they use Red Skull, it says he always leads Hydra. And Hydra is a villain group. So here, normally a villain group consists of 8 cards. Most of the time, there are 2 of each 4 separate cards. That is not exactly the way this one works. I have 3 Endless Armies of Hydra, 3 Hydra Kidnappers, 1 Viper, and 1 Supreme Hydra. So these are the 8 villains from the Hydra villain group that are going to go into what's called the villain deck. More on that in a minute. It also says what happens when a Master Strike is played. So Master Strike is represented by these cards, which are called Master Strike cards, and they represent in the game that the mastermind comes forward and actually attacks the heroes directly rather than working through their underlings. For a normal game, quote unquote normal, you would have 5 of these in your villain deck. For solo, you only put 1. There is an advanced solo mode. Not going to deal with that one today. Maybe in a future video. They're similar but different. So we're going to start with the basic solo mode. So that is our mastermind. We have Red Skull. We put Hydra in there, and we know what happens when he Master Strikes. Each player KOs a hero from their hand. And KO means out of the game. So there is, it's a deck builder, so there's a discard pile. When you've played a hand or you just can discard a card, you don't actually have to play it, which becomes important at some point in time. But KO means it's out of the game for the rest of this particular session of the game. Now, the second thing that we do, or the second big key component, is which scheme we choose. The base game comes with, I believe it's 8 schemes. So you can mix and match each scheme to each mastermind. So 8 times 4, I think that's 32. There's 32 different combinations to start with. This gives the game a huge amount of variety and replayability. Now, some of the schemes make more sense for a certain villain, certain masterminds, I should say, but they can't all be used interchangeably. For today's example, I'm using replace Earth's leaders with killbots. Now, whenever you choose a scheme, it has all the text on it that tells you how to utilize the scheme and what you do if there's anything unusual. So for example, for the setup on this scheme, you take 5 twists, which are represented by these cards. They're called scheme twists, and they have art of Venom, Scorpion, Dr. Octopus, and Green Goblin, and they say scheme twist, and they go into the villain deck. But it also says you take an additional 3 scheme twist cards, and you go ahead and put them in the scheme twist pile. It also says to add 18 total bystanders to the villain deck. In normal setup, you put a number of bystanders into the villain deck based off the number of players. For a solo game, it's usually 1, but because of the scheme, it's telling me to put 18 total. So it's not 18 plus the one I normally would put, it's 18 total, which are these cards here. Now, bystanders, basically these represent civilians that are getting in harm's way and have to be protected or rescued by the heroes. So I have 18 of them that are also going to go into my villain deck. The rest create a stack of bystanders that goes in the bystander stack face down over here on the board. And this is facing you, so I'll be playing it basically backwards, but it's not that complicated. At least I hope so. Maybe I'll regret that later. Now, the special rules for this scheme is whenever a bystander in the villain deck comes out, it is considered a killbot. So it means it's not truly a bystander, it's a killbot. And it has an attack value equal to the number of twists next to the scheme. So we're starting with 3, and I have a die here. It's an 8-sided die. I'm going to use it to help myself. I'm going to put it on 3 so that I know that when these killbots come out, they are value 3. Every time I draw a scheme, I add it to this stack, so it will go up. There's 5 total, so eventually we could get to having the killbots have an attack value of 8, which is bad. And then evil wins, so each scheme has its own win condition. Evil wins if 5 of these killbots escape. So that goes in the scheme pile. So, yep. So the other thing you're going to do is you're going to add henchmen. So the villain groups are 8 cards of a villain group. You also have henchmen, which are called villain henchmen, and they are 10 of the identical same cards. So in this case, I'm going to use the Hand Ninja. These are henchman villains. They have an attack value of 3, which means that I have to get 3 attack points to defeat them. And they have a triggered effect that when you fight them, and it's identified on the card, it says fight in bold, and then it has the effect, gain 1 recruit point. So anytime I fight one of these villains, I actually get an additional recruit point for that turn to help me recruit additional heroes into my game, into my hand, into my deck, and for the game. So I'm going to take and I'm going to shuffle all of these together. I'll be right back. All right, so I've now fully shuffled all of the cards that the game and the individual scheme and the mastermind has told me to, and this creates our villain deck, which goes here. Now, this might be a good time to mention that this playmat does not come with the game. This is something I bought separately. The base game does come with a cardboard fold-out map or playmat. I prefer these better, but they're not required to play. You don't have to use actually any of them to play, but this is very helpful to kind of keep you organized to make sure you know where all the cards go and that you have all of them represented. Next to the villain deck, we have these 5 spaces which represent the city. It starts with the sewers, then we have the bank, then we have our rooftop, streets, finally the bridge. As we reveal cards from the villain deck, certain cards, generally villains, henchmen, will go into the city in the first first spot. It will push any villains in the way. So if there's already a villain in the sewer, we reveal a new villain, we move the first villain to the bank, and the newly revealed villain goes into the sewer. And they're going to travel this way across the city only when they're pushed, unless something in the game tells you otherwise, because there are certain cards, don't think there's any in the core game, but there are some cards that might tell you to do things with them. But you're basically going to push them along the city. If a villain gets to the bridge and then would be pushed out, it escapes. And that's why in this scheme, we lose if 5 killbots escape. So if 5 of these bystander/killbots make it across and then escape, happens 5 times, I will lose the game. You also lose the game if you run out of villain cards, and you lose the game if you run out of hero cards. So there is sort of a time limit on every game that if you wait too long and try to build your deck too well, you're going to run out of time and you're going to lose. There's also wound cards, and wound cards are basically dead cards in your hand. They hurt you because you can't do anything with them. They take up space. When it's your turn, you're going to draw 6 cards. For every wound card, that's 1 less card that can actually do anything to help you. So they're bad to have. With a few minor exceptions, the Hulk in particular, I know has an ability that utilizes wounds to power greater attacks. So the Hulk, the player who's using Hulk cards might actually be benefited by having wounds, but that's very rare. Usually they're bad. Now you can get rid of wounds, and again, it has the text on the card. It says if you don't recruit any heroes or defeat any villains on your turn, you may KO all of the wounds from your hand. Now it's important to recognize that it says recruit heroes or fight villains. You can do other things, you just can't do those 2 things and still get rid of wounds. So for instance, Iron Man has the ability to draw a lot of cards, and I'm going to be using Iron Man in the game I show you. So I could use my cards to draw more cards to try to get more wounds in my hand before I then use healing to get rid of them. If I recruit anybody or fight anybody, now I can't do that. So if you're going to do it, you're basically giving up your turn. So it's best to try to get as many out as you can. If you just happen to randomly draw 2 or 3, it might be a good time to get rid of those wounds, even if you have things you could do, but it's also okay to utilize other abilities, just not fight or recruit. Now, to start with, you start with a deck of 12 cards, and these are your starter cards. They are made up of 4 Shield Trooper cards and 8 Shield Agent cards. Now, these are both 0 cost cards, so they have 0 for where you would recruit them. They each give you 1 of a resource. The troopers give you 1 fight point or attack point, and the agents will give you 1 recruit point. So you're going to shuffle these together, and that's going to make your starting deck/hand. So pardon me, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've now shuffled my 12 cards together to create my starting deck. Now, the last thing we need to do before we actually play is to choose which heroes we want to use for this game. This is the other way the game provides a huge amount of replayability and variety. There are 14 heroes in the core set. When you play a solo game, you use 3 of them. In a game of 2, 3, or 4 players, you use 5. And if you play a 5-person game, you use 6. There are certain schemes that might tell you other things, to use additional heroes or less heroes. But for the most part, it's going to be 5 most of the time, 3 if it's a solo game, 6 if it's a 5-person game. So the heroes you choose, how they work together and how those heroes work against the various masterminds and schemes can make the game easier, harder, or just add variety. So when you look at your heroes, they all have some common themes. They all have a team affiliation. So up in the top left-hand corner, there is a symbol. This is Hawkeye, and his symbol is the Avenger symbol. It's an A with a circle around it. So Hawkeye, at least this version of Hawkeye, because in expansions we may get others, he is a member of the Avengers team. The heroes also fall into classes. So the classes are represented by a microchip, which is a tech hero. It's an image. It looks like a outline of a head with 3 lines going through it. I personally think this looks like Wolverine slashing someone in the face, but it's supposed to be like mental waves coming from a head, and it's instinct heroes. Some of your heroes have this red symbol, which is like 2 arrows kind of converging on each other, and those represent covert heroes. Some of your heroes have this blue aiming reticle, and that's your ranged heroes. And then you also have strength heroes, which are represented by like a green Hulk fist. And those are your hero classes. Now, one thing that's different is that your shield cards are gray, and they do not have a hero class, but they are considered gray cards. So some of the cards may say, for every hero class you have, X, Y, or Z, shield cards, at least the starter cards, do not count as hero class cards. But if there's a card that says something about having gray heroes or the color of the hero, it does count as gray. It is one of the rules that's a little bit weird. In the core set, there is a Nick Fury card who is also a shield operative, and he has a lot of abilities that can work off of having multiple shield cards in your hand. Also forgot to mention, we have a stack here. These are our shield officers. These are always out and available, face up on the deck. They have their own spot. As long as there's any left in the stack, you can recruit them every turn that you want to, that you have enough recruit. It costs 3 recruit points, and that is identified by this 3 in the circle here at the bottom, and they give you 2 recruit points. So they're basically an upgraded version of your hero agent, or excuse me, your shield agent cards. So you have your heroes, they all have a team affiliation. In the core set, we have Avenger cards, we have X-Men cards, so like Cyclops, Wolverine, Gambit fall into that, Emma Frost. You have, again, Avengers, so you have Black Widow, Captain America, Hawkeye, Thor, and then you also have Spider Friends. So in the base set, you have Spider-Man, who is a Spider Friend hero affiliation. And then you have, again, those classes I mentioned, Instinct, Range, Strength, tech, and covert. So obviously your hero cards are better than your starter cards. Generally, they just do other things. So like, for example, this Hawkeye card, it generates 1 fight point, but it also lets me draw a card. But some of these cards have special abilities, like superhero abilities. So this Hawkeye card gives me 3 fight points, but it also has a triggered ability. And I know you can't see this. I'm gonna try to put this on the screen so you'll be able to see it. But it has a little microchip icon. And what that means is if I play a card that has a microchip icon, it's a tech hero, before I play this card, then I also get to do this effect, which in this case is choose 1, each other player draws a card, or each other player discards a card. So the first time I play this card, that's not going to happen. If I play 2 copies of the same card, it would happen on the second. If I play a different card completely, but it has that microchip tech hero icon, then I can trigger this ability. So the first card cannot trigger itself, but one card can trigger multiple other abilities. So this card is also a microchip card. So if I play this card first, if every other card in my hand triggers off of a microchip card, they all are triggered. I don't have to trigger each one separately. Hopefully that makes sense. So one of the things that you want to do when you put your teams together is try to find cards that work well together. The 3 I have chosen will work very well together. And I don't want to say I'm cheating, but I chose heroes specifically that I knew would help me with this specific scenario. Because again, I want to win. I want to show you what it's like to win the game. So I've chosen Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Iron Man. Should also mention that each hero deck is comprised of 14 cards. You have 5 of the same card, a different 5 of the same card, 3 of the same card, and then 1 card. And that one last card is your ultimate. It's your highest, most powerful version of that card. Ultimates always cost 7 or more to buy, so they're pretty easy to see. Because one of the things I do not like about this game, I love this game dearly, but the one thing I do not like in the core set, they use the same art on every card. So all the Hawkeye cards have the same exact art. Now, the abilities are different, the colors can be different, the names of the abilities are different, but the art is the same. In future editions, they've gotten away with that, and they actually use different art for each of the different types of cards. So the 5 that do the same thing have the same art, but it's different art than the 5 that do this other thing. But there's a lot of tech heroes in this. Hawkeye is a mixture between instinct heroes and tech heroes. Black Widow is a mixture of tech heroes and covert heroes. And then Iron Man is a mixture of tech hero and ranged heroes. So I'm going to shuffle these 3 together. So excuse me, I'll be right back. And I'm back. I've now fully shuffled my heroes together to form my hero deck. So now, I explained earlier, we have the cityscape. Below that, you have the HQ. And the HQ is just one large space. It's not divided like the city is, but they line up. Certain cards may reference the hero under a specific city space, so it is important to realize that there is that difference there. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay out our first 5 heroes. So we're just going to flip the top 5 cards. And this makes up our initial headquarters. So I have 2 Iron Man cards, 2 Hawkeye cards, and a Black Widow card in the middle. So as I recruit cards, I'm going to explain what they do rather than trying to explain them as they lay out here, because I don't think that will be communicated very well. Hopefully that makes sense. So I've already shuffled my starting deck, so I'm going to draw my initial hand of 6. Unless something tells you otherwise, you should always have 6 cards in your hand. So for my initial hand, I have 5 recruit heroes and 1 fighting hero. But before I do anything, the game goes first. So we will turn over the first card from the villain deck, and it is a bystander. Again, there's a lot of bystanders in this deck. Now, normally, the bystander would be attached to whichever villain is closest to the villain deck And if there's no villains, then he would get attached to the mastermind. And then later, when I fought the mastermind, I would rescue the bystander. But in this scenario, the bystanders represent killbots. So it acts as a villain. So it goes into the first space of the city, and it is currently a 3 attack power villain, which means I have to generate 3 attack points to be able to fight it. As I already said, I only have 1 attack point, so that's not going to do me any good. But I do have 5 recruit points. Anytime something happens to remove a hero from the HQ, you immediately replace it. So for example, let's say I had 10 recruit points. I could recruit any of these cards, replace it, and then still recruit again if I have enough points left over. Some deck builders do, some deck builders do not let you do that. So just clarify that this game you replace instantly, which you can even replace then if you have enough recruit points to continue to do so. So I'm going to start off by choosing this Iron Man hero, which is Endless Invention. It is a microchip card. When you play it, you draw a card. If you've played another, or if you have already played a microchip card in front of it, you get to draw an additional card. So I'll be able to draw 1 or 2 cards. I'm a really big fan of drawing a lot of cards. And again, I chose heroes specifically because both Black Widow and Hawkeye are also, some of their cards are microchip cards. I'm going to be able to draw a lot of cards. I could make a strong argument that since I have 5 recruit points, that I actually should take one of the other heroes that are more powerful and give me more attack. I'm taking the chance that in the long term, I want that card advantage quickly. So we'll see if that hurts me in the end, because it very well could. I'm going to, see, here we go. Perfect. I replaced it with a Black Widow card. Mission accomplished. It's a Black Widow card with a microchip. When you play it, you draw a card. And if you've already played a microchip, you can rescue a bystander. Since I still had 2 recruit points left, and this one costs 2, I can recruit that one as well into my deck. And now I would reveal another card. So now my turn is done. I'm going to go ahead and draw 6 new cards. Since you start with 12, I know it's the next 6. I don't have to worry about shuffling yet. You also do not shuffle unless you have to, because there are certain cards and abilities that will key off of your discard and like what's in your discard pile. So do not shuffle until you have to, because you need to draw a card, or a game mechanic tells you to reveal, let's say, the top 3 cards of your deck. If you only had 2 cards that were face down in your deck and you need to reveal 3, you would then shuffle and then build that deck so that you could reveal 3. Hopefully that makes sense. So I've drawn my new 6 cards. First thing that happens, play the villain deck. It's another bystander. Now, realistically, or I should say technically, I moved the first bystander over and added the new bystander to the first part of the city. But because they're the same exact card, in this case, it doesn't matter. I just laid it in the second spot. But if it had been a different villain, I would have moved the card to the bank and then put the new villain in the sewer. Because again, you want to push them along in the order they came out. All right, so this time I have 3 attack and I have 3 recruit. So I can play this in any order I want. I can do everything in whatever order I want. And there are certain situations where the order is important. Also should mention, you do not have to play cards. So if there is a card in your hand that says when you play it, something happens, and you don't want that thing to happen, you can just choose not to play that card. At the end of your turn, you're still going to discard everything in your hand into your discard pile and draw a new card. So you can't save it for later, unless it's a card that says you can, and there are some of those. But mostly it's just, you can choose not to do what it says. It just doesn't count as your hand. I'm going to go ahead and fight. I'm going to fight because I have 3 attack points. I can take out this 3 attack villain, which is a killbot. It goes into my victory pile, but it now acts as a bystander. This is very important because, again, I chose these cards specifically. One of my cards will key off of the number of bystanders I have in my victory pile. So I'm going to keep my bystanders separate from my victory pile just to make that easier for me. But ideally, or realistically, all the cards over here are all part of the same victory pile. I also have 3 recruit points. So I'm going to recruit this Black Widow card, which is Dangerous Rescue. It generates 2 attack, and it has the ability, if I play another covert hero in front, so again, I can trigger this ability with a covert hero. It says you may KO a card from your hand or discard pile, which I want to do a lot. I want to get rid of those early cards that aren't very good. And if I do that, I can also rescue a bystander. Again, my goal is to get as many bystanders into my discard or my victory pile as I can, as quickly as I can, because that's going to make some of my other cards very powerful. So I don't have any cards left, so now I have to shuffle them all. So I had 12 cards originally, now I have 15 because I've recruited a total of 3. And hopefully I'll get some of these new good cards, and we'll see what happens. Obviously I need to replace this hero. That's another of the same cards, the Black Widow card that lets me draw a card. Oh, no, sorry. It's the first Black Widow. It's the draw a card, rescue bystander card. All right, so I'm going to draw 6 cards for my new hand. And before I do anything, the villains go. All right, in this case, it's a henchman, which is a hand ninja. It is also a value 3 attack, which means I gotta get 3 attack points to defeat it. When I fight this card, I get +1 recruit. So this one moves the first villain down and then takes its spot in the sewer. Some villain cards have ambush effects. And again, it'll say that on the card. It'll have ambush in bold and then tell you what it does after. I don't think any of the ones I'm using today do, but maybe the Hydra. We'll find out if we get there. But anytime that card is revealed, if it has an ambush effect, you do that effect. And it can be, heroes have to reveal a certain type of card, like a certain team affiliation or a certain type of hero, like, ranged or strength. Or you might check your victory pile for something. You might do something with your deck. So anything that says ambush, you're supposed to do. If a card escapes, if a villain escapes, in this scenario, 5 of them escape, we lose. But in general, if a card escapes, we have to KO one of our heroes in the HQ. And if a villain escapes while it has a bystander on it, we also have to discard a card. Now, since all of our bystanders in this game are considered villains, we won't ever have to worry about that particular thing. But in general, villains escaping is kind of bad. Okay, so now we're ready for our next turn. So I have 1 trooper, so that's 1 fight point. 3 agents, so that's 3 recruit points. I have 2 of my Black Widow cards. Unfortunately, both of them have triggered abilities, so I can't do as much. But the first one here, mission accomplished. If I play it, I get to draw a card. So I will draw a replacement card. It is a fight icon, so that gives me 2 fight now. And then I also have the other Black Widow that's 2 fight. It doesn't have any other abilities because I can't trigger it because I haven't played a different card first. At least not the right hero. This is a microchip hero. This one triggers off of a covert hero. This one triggers off of the microchip hero, tech heroes, but they can't trigger themselves. So they don't do anything extra because of that. I need to get more cards in my hand. But I have 3 recruit points. So I could recruit a Maria Hill, which is our shield officer, which gives me more recruit points. Or there's this 2-point Black Widow. It's another microchip card. I want as many microchip cards as I can, so I'm going to recruit this one. And then I have 4 attack. Now that's enough to take out the hand ninja, which would give me an additional recruit point, but it doesn't really help me now because even if I had done it before, I wouldn't have had enough to do anything else. So I'm going to save that ninja till later when 1 recruit point might make a big difference in what I can do. I also want to try to take out these kill bots as early as I can before they get stronger. And again, I want as many bystanders in my victory pile as I can. So all in all, that's great for me. So all these cards now go into my discard pile. I draw 6 new cards and play the villain card. All right, so we have another hand ninja. Again, in the game terms, I moved 1 down and replaced it, but since they're the same identical, it doesn't matter. All right, so this turn, I have an Iron Man, which lets me draw a card. If I had played another microchip hero first, I could draw 2, but I can't, so I get to draw 1. I have a total of 1 attack, which doesn't help me, and I have a total of 5 recruit. So now I have some choices to make. And again, I don't think you can see these on the board. I'm hoping with some graphics I can help. But I have two of the same Iron Man. Both of these are the same card. They're both Recruit 5. They both give me 3 attack points +1 for each other microchip hero you played. It's a triggered ability, so I got to trigger that first. So this can get pumped up pretty easily. It can give me a lot of attack. This one is a Hawkeye card that is a microchip card. It's a 3 attack, and I can choose one. Each other player draws a card or discards a card. Since I'm playing solo, this would affect me, so I would actually draw a card. So it would let me draw a card, gives me 3 attack, and it's also a microchip, which means it's going to trigger some of the other abilities I want. Or there's this Hawkeye, which is a 2+ attack, and it gets pluses for playing other Avenger cards. So if I played another Avenger first and all my cards are Avenger cards, it's a 3 rather than a 2. So all that being equal, right now, I'm going to take the Hawkeye that is a microchip card that also lets me draw a card and can trigger other card drawing abilities. Again, my goal is to get as many of these card drawing abilities in my hand as possible, because it's going to help me just get honestly a stupid amount of cards in my hand later. All right, I've only got 1 card left in my draw pile, so I will draw it. Now it's time to shuffle. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The villain deck goes. It's a bystander, which again is a killbot. Still a 3/3, or not a 3/3. That's magic. It's a 3. All right, so now I got some cards. I got some options here. So my basic cards, I have 1 trooper, which is a fight. Sorry, 2 troopers, which is 2 fight, 1 agent, which is 1 recruit, and then I have 2 Black Widow cards and a Hawkeye card. And I need to try to figure out which is my best option of how I play them. This one only triggers from another covert hero I don't currently have anymore, so it doesn't matter which order I play this one in. It's worth 2 fight, which gives me a total of 4. Now these cards, if I play Black Widow first, I will draw a card, and then when I play Hawkeye, because I played her first, I can draw another, so I get 2 new cards. If I play them in the other order, I would not get to draw any cards for Hawkeye. I would draw 1 card for Black Widow, but I would rescue a bystander, which I want, but I think in this case I want cards more. So I'm going to draw a card first, then I'm going to play Hawkeye, and then I'm going to draw a card for him. Okay, so with all that silliness out of the way, that gives me a total of 8 fight points and 2 recruit points. So since I have 8, that's enough to fight the mastermind for the first time. So that's what I'm going to do. So earlier I shuffled these, but I'll just do it again just for the sake of consistency or authenticity or whatever you want to say it. And I'm going to draw one at random. So this is what happens when I fight Red Skull this turn. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, KO 1, discard 1, and then put 1 back on top. So I'm going to look at the top 3. They're all exactly the same thing. They're all 3 agent cards. So I'm going to KO 1, which means it's out of the game, which is fine for me. I want to get rid of those as quickly as possible. I discard 1, and then I put 1 back on top of my deck. And then I take all these cards, put them into my discard pile, draw 6 more, and then the villain deck goes. We have our first Hydra villain. So this is a Hydra villain. It is Hydra Kidnappers. When you fight him, you may gain a shield officer, which again, these cards here, which are worth 2 recruit points. It does say may, so I can choose to recruit or not. If I'm later in the game, I may not want that card because it doesn't really help me anymore. I would still consider it a weaker card. Earlier in the game, it might be more valuable because it's worth 2 recruit points. So I'll just have to see how I feel when I get to that one. And it's a 3 attack value, so I got to get 3 attack points before I can fight it. All right, so let's see what I have this time in my hand. All right, so these are my good cards, so let me hold this aside. Otherwise, I have 4 shield agents, so I have 4 recruit points currently. I also have a Black Widow and an Iron Man. And one of them, if I play them in one order, I'll get to draw an extra card. If I play them in the other order, I'll get to draw a bystander. But I get to draw a card for each of them. So no matter which way I play them, I get to draw 2 cards. If I play them in one order, I'll draw 2 cards and rescue a bystander. If I play them in the other order, I draw 3 cards. So it's, which do I want? More cards or more bystanders? I'm still going to go with cards. So I'm going to draw a card, and then draw a card. So I'm going to draw 1 card. Don't have any cards now, so now I'm forced to shuffle. And, whoops. I do use card sleeves, so I can't just do like a riffle bridge shuffle. I would probably have a heart attack if someone did that to my cards. Okay. So now I get to draw 2 more. Perfect. So I drew 2 shield troopers, which are 2 attack points. But I drew another Black Widow, so I get to play her, draw a card. Because I have already played a microchip character, I also get to rescue a bystander. So I now have 3 bystanders in my victory pile, and my new card is another trooper. So all said and done, I have 3 attack points and 4 recruit points. So here's a perfect opportunity. I'm going to use my 3 attack to take out this ninja, which also goes into my victory pile. It gives me 1 bonus victory, or excuse me, 1 bonus recruit point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I can get this Iron Man. All these cards go into my discard. Oh, sorry. Boop. 4, 5, 6, perfect. And then villain deck goes. Another bystander, which is again is a killbot. All right. So hopefully by now, kind of makes sense what I'm doing. So I'm not going to continue to explain everything unless I think there's like a particularly interesting or difficult decision I have to make. But I still will explain what I'm doing. I'm just not going to go into so much detail. So I have 1 attack, 3 recruit. This gives me a total of 3 attack and 6 attack. I wasn't able to trigger any special abilities. So I have 3 recruit and 6 attack. All right, so I'm going to take the hand ninja. That gives me a bonus recruit, so I will recruit this other Hawkeye. Still have 3 left, so I'll go ahead and take this other killbot / bystander. All right, that's my entire deck, so I got to shuffle. Here's the ultimate Black Widow card. Costs 7 to recruit, and I can defeat a villain or mastermind that has a bystander, which in this particular scenario isn't as cool as it could be, because I will never have villains with bystanders because all the bystanders are killbots, unless some of the cards have ambush effects where they capture bystanders, but I don't think this one does. But it's still a good card. It gives me 4 attack, and it's also a covert card, which will allow me to trigger some other abilities for some of her other cards. So if I get to 7 recruit, I will definitely be taking it. 5, 6. Oh, another villain. Pretty sure that's a villain card I messed up there. All right, here we go. Now we're getting some cards. So I have 2 recruit and 1 attack so far. All right, I'm going to play them in this order. Black Widow first lets me draw a card. I have the same card again. So Black Widow, I draw a card and I rescue a bystander. So that's 5. I got another trooper. So that's 2 more attack. Iron Man, draw a card, and because I've already played another microchip character, I get to draw an additional card. Another agent. Hawkeye, choose one. Each other player draws a card or discards a card. I choose to draw a card. 3 attack, and now I'll play my last Iron Man, which is a 3 attack card, but it gets a +1 for each other microchip hero I played this turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 7 attack. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 13 attack right now. And that's definitely enough to fight the Mastermind. I know at least one of the Mastermind cards gives me additional attack. So I've got a 33% chance to get a bonus attack, which would let me take him out twice. But let's see. Again, you saw me shuffle them before. I choose this one. Draw 2 cards. And then draw another card for each Hydra villain in your victory pile. I don't have any Hydra villain cards, but I will draw 2. See, here we go. Additional recruit. It's 3 more attack, and I get to draw a card. Another recruit. So I had 13. I used 7, so I have 6 left. Got 3 more. So now I'm back up to 9. So that's enough to fight the villain again, leaving me 2 left. And then I get +4 recruit. That puts me at 9 recruit points. Now, earlier I said I was going to take Black Widow, but there's now an ultimate Hawkeye. Whenever you defeat a villain or Mastermind this turn, rescue 3 bystanders, and it's a 5 attack, so I'm going to take that one instead. Alrighty. So I may not even get to the point where the bystanders matter. I don't know if I'm even going to get to that card. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at is some of the Black Widow cards get +1 for every bystander. So if I were to get to that one right now, I'd be at +5 on that card, and I probably will have more bystanders before then. But I'm already generating so many fight points, I don't think it's going to matter. I think I'll be able to take him out pretty quickly. So that's my 6 cards. Oh, actually, no, I only have to fight him one more time. So I've only got to get to 7. So, yeah. All right. Begin. The first thing that happens, the villain card goes. First, we have our first scheme twist. For this scheme, we stack it here. It becomes, that's 4. So now all of these killbots are 4 power rather than 3, which means it's a little harder to get to. I may have spoken a little too soon because I don't have much this time. 2, 3. So I have 4 attack and 3 recruit. So since I have 4 and it's a 4, I will take this, which gives me 6 bystanders. And my 3 recruit, I'll take this Hawkeye, who is a instinct character, but he does let me draw a card. Because again, I love drawing cards. It's one of my favorite things to do. If anyone out there used to play Magic, you probably would guess I'm a blue player. I love control and card advantage. All right. So now the villain goes. We got another bystander. So 4, 4, 3 in our Mastermind. We might be able to get there this time. Let's find out. So I'm playing a Black Widow that lets me draw a card. Then I'm playing an Iron Man that lets me draw a card, but because I already played a microchip character, I get to draw 2 cards. All right. Playing a Hawkeye that lets me draw a card. Playing a Hawkeye that lets me draw a card. Playing a Black Widow lets me draw a card. And I rescue a bystander. All right. Now, none of these cards actually generate any recruit or fight, but they just let me draw a bunch of cards. Recruit's not going to matter this turn, so I'm going to get rid of those. So currently I have 6 fight, 7, 8, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19. I have 19 attack. Obviously, that's enough to take out the Mastermind. The last one is the one that gives me plus fight, which doesn't really matter. So I have beaten the game. I've defeated the Mastermind 4 times before the scheme, or I ran out of cards. So I have been victorious. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I lose this game more often than I win when I play solo mode, particularly if I play regular solo and not advanced solo. I think advanced solo in some ways is easier because you have more cards, gives you a little bit more time, but there's other aspects to it. but I chose a particular scheme, and then I specifically chose my heroes. I I really thought I was going to win this one. I would have been surprised if I didn't. But if you mix things up, if you aren't as strategic, which I mean, maybe you want to be strategic, that's fine. It's fun to be strategic and go, I was smart and I won. But it can also be fun to just randomly choose which heroes you use, randomly choose which scheme you choose, randomly choose which mastermind you choose, and then see what comes of it. There are some apps available. I don't know if they're up to date with all of the new expansions, but they were for a while, that would do that for you. You could say if it's a 1-player, 2, 3, 4, 5-player game, which expansions you have access to, and they would just randomize and then tell you which ones you can use or which ones you should use to generate that game. But it's a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the game, seeing it played, seeing how it works. Absolutely hope that I've got some converts out there that you'll go out and pick up this game if you can. Let me know if you would like for me to do any more of these videos. I have considered doing a very extensive deep dive into each of the expansions and talk about the heroes they've added, the masterminds, the schemes, what new abilities, but I'm not sure if that's something that would be worth the time and effort. I'm happy to do it if there are enough people out there who are interested. So please consider commenting on that's something you'd like for me to do or not. But either way, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks, and bye.